Welcome in, Slumpbusters. This is your host, Juju Talk Sports, joined, of course, by my co-host, Kyle Ledbetter. And on today's episode, another fantastic guest brought to you, Mike Fuji of the Broad Street South podcast, to talk all things Philadelphia 76ers, a team that is very interesting right now coming off the NBA trade deadline. And Mike, we're hoping you could impart some wisdom for us. How's your day going today, man?
Hey, it's going good. We're, happy Harden week, as we're saying in Philly right now. I mean, this town's buzzing. Everybody can't wait to get James Harden out, out in Minnesota tomorrow night at 8:30. Sixers right now, I mean, there's not much going on. Baseball, lockout, Flyers in the toilet. And it's just, the city's buzzing and people just can't wait for James Harden, number one, to take the court with Joel Embiid. And the NBA's ready to see it. I think I'm fired up. I can't wait. Actually, I'm going to the game on the 7th against the Bulls. So James Harden, actually the number one jersey on Fanatics right now.
I don't doubt it. Anytime a superstar player like James Harden, a former MVP, is out there, it's going to make any city that goes and acquires him a very electric environment to be in. In James Harden's first press conference, he called Philadelphia his first choice all along. How much do you buy that comment? And can you talk about the chemistry or the relationship between Daryl Morey and James Harden that facilitated this trade happening?
Well, James Harden, getting traded to Brooklyn last year, I believe Daryl Morey wanted to bring him to Philly all along, but I guess Houston took whatever Brooklyn got him, to go to Brooklyn with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. They're pretty tight, I believe. Morey was waiting to go out to at least, the Ben Simmons saga is over in Philly now. He's with Brooklyn, and I believe they are very tight. Morey got his man in Philly, and I think James Harden wanted to be in Philly all along. Kyrie Irving, not taking the vaccine, not being able to play in every home game in Brooklyn, and Durant hurt. It was just, I just think, the marriage is over. Those guys played 16 games total altogether. I mean, how are you supposed to go out and win a championship? When you got Kyrie Irving out on home games and Durant hurt and James Harden with the hamstring issue, it just didn't really gel up there. And, I think Harden's where he wanted to be. I mean, he went out to Milwaukee last Thursday night. He put Tyrese Maxey. He was on the bench with the guys, just coaching it up. Tyrese Maxey, Kork Maz, he was getting these young guys involved. So, I think it's pretty much, he wanted to show Maxey, is right now the point guard of the Sixers, exactly what he wanted him to do, so, they could be on the same page. I think James Harden one day could be a coach in the NBA. Who knows? His positive vibes, him and Joe, everybody's laughing, and the Sixers made that deal 2 weeks ago. Everybody upped their game, even though they got blown out by Boston last week. But I think James Harden's going to raise the level on this team. Like I said, this town's buzzing and ready to rock come tomorrow night. I know I'm fired up.
So when the trade went down a couple weeks ago, there seemed to be bad blood for pretty much everyone involved in that deal. Obviously, Simmons goes on his way out and him and Embiid aren't on the greatest terms. KD signed off on the Harden trade, and Harden wanted to get out before the deadline to play for the Sixers this year. So you, as a 76ers fan, Mr. Fuji, how did you process everything that went down over the past couple weeks at the trade deadline?
I was ecstatic just waiting, because, the rumors started heating up probably earlier that week. Rumors were circulating all along. And then finally, this Woj of ESPN broke the story. And now it's just like the airwaves of 97.5 The Fanatic, 94 WIP were just buzzing. Like I said, this city's ready to go. We haven't won a title since 1983. So that taste in Sixers fans' mouths, it's, everybody's juicing and jonesing for it. I know I'm ready because, last time, we're going on 38 years without a title with the Sixers. I mean, you figure the Phillies and the Eagles have won, but the Sixers haven't really done much. They haven't been to the finals since 2001 with Allen Iverson. We want to get that tradition back here with the Philadelphia 76ers. I figure it's a 2-year window with Joel Embiid and James Harden. So now's the time to win now, the way Embiid's playing on that MVP level, that MVP status. We're just, the man right now is the man. He's the best player in the world right now. As Charles Barkley and Shaq were saying, man, the man's unstoppable. He's healthy right now. So, as the big men get older, the injuries creep up. And, Joel Embiid's history with injuries hasn't been too good. So, like I said, it's a 2-year window, and this team needs to win now.
This is James Harden's third team in 2 seasons. So this trade can either be the biggest benefit or indictment to his long-term legacy. If this doesn't work, if this doesn't result in an NBA Finals appearance, if this doesn't result in an NBA title, would you mark this as like the most damaging indictment on James Harden? How do you think this affects him in legacy building mode?
You guys could look up a sports reporter in Philly for the last close to 40 years named Howard Eskin. He was on WIP for 30 plus years. Actually, it was really the staple that started sports talk in Philly back in the early 80s. And he asked James Harden, this is your third team in 13 months. Funny you guys bring that up. And, the rumors about Harden dogging it, not wanting to be in certain places, basically quitting. But, Harden just came out and said, I wanted to be in Philly. Here I am. And, that's it. I mean, it is a great point, but I think Harden wants to win, and it's time for him to win now. He's 32, going on 33 years old. I mean, the window of opportunity is closing on James Harden. But, like I said, with this trade, it's boom or bust. I know him and KD played in Oklahoma City before, him and Westbrook. The history with those guys, like obviously you could see Kevin Durant didn't want to draft him in the All-Star. I get, the bad blood there. But, Ben Simmons had to go. I mean, some people say Brooklyn got the better end of the trade. I mean, Seth Curry's hot and cold. We appreciate what he brought to the table here. Thing of it is, I mean, like I said, the only thing that scares me with the Sixers is the minutes with Embiid playing, but you really have nobody to bring in off the bench. And I forget the guy they just picked up on a 10-day contract.
Oh, Willie Cauley-Stein.
Yeah, I know they brought him in, I know he's a veteran, journeyman, but, hopefully there's, a couple buyouts they could get soon. So, it's a boom or bust. And, who the hell knows what Ben Simmons is going to do? I mean, he basically used the cop out of depression, which, I sympathize with anybody like that. I mean, to me, I think he clearly just wants to be in LA because, earlier before the season started, he bought a $17 million home out there. I mean, does he want to be in Brooklyn? I guess time will tell. March 10th is coming up. That is like the biggest sports event coming up in the next couple of weeks. And a lot of rumors are saying that he's not going to play here in Philly when the Sixers and the Nets square off that night.
So I wanted to ask you about Doc Rivers a little bit because his situation has been fascinating in not just his time with the Clippers, where he used up a lot of the equity that he had within that championship of the Boston Celtics and gets fired after 1 year together with Kawhi and Paul George. So I wanted to ask you, going forward at this point, do you think that Doc deserves criticism for how things ended with Ben Simmons and that whole situation in Philadelphia, where last year they were heavy favorites against the Hawks and fall apart at the end? And is there now pressure on him to succeed this year with this core? And are they looking at him as the odd man out now that they have the 2 stars in place, the general manager secured in his job? Is he kind of the thing that the pressure is on him at this point?
Pressure on Doc, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the pressure on Doc Rivers.
I don't think. I mean, Doc's always had a history, I believe, of getting out in the second round. And, the Sixers have only gotten to the second round. You go back to Toronto with, the bounce with Kawhi Leonard and, just snake bit them when they had Jimmy Butler. And, in the grand scheme of things, I'm kind of sorry. We're sorry that the Sixers didn't keep Jimmy Butler and trade Ben Simmons. Jimmy Butler being 31 at the time, a free agent getting a max contract. Ben had obviously more upside being 24, 25 and phenomenal defensive player. But is the pressure on Doc? I'm sure there's a little heat on him now, but I don't think Doc's going anywhere. Like I said, this trade being boom or bust, the coaches of any sport always take the heat. You can't fire the players, obviously. I think it just depends where they go this year. And I think he has this year or next year.
Well, one of the necessary evils of acquiring a guy like James Harden is you have to give up some good players to get a guy like that. So they had to give up Seth Curry, which means they lose a great outside shooting presence. And I've seen this floated around Philadelphia 76ers Twitter, the idea of starting Danny Green. Danny Green, he's a guy that has some rings on his resume. He's gone through occasional shooting slumps, but overall on the season, 37% on the year, so not bad. Would you like to see Danny Green implemented into the 76ers starting lineup with Seth Curry now gone?
Actually, I'll mention something. As I heard on the radio today, they had somebody on one of the NBC Sports, and we used to be Comcast. the one lady named Amy Fadul mentioned something that, there's rumors about Danny Green and Matisse Thybulle being the fifth player, but she think Korkmaz could be, that fifth starter because Korkmaz, he's got a nice outside shot. Maybe you just mix these guys in, along with Isaiah Joe and Shake Milton coming off the bench. So,
well, let me ask you, when it comes down to it in the playoffs, when the roster kind of shrinks a little bit and rotations get smaller, who are the 7 or 8 players you would count on most for Philadelphia at this stage of the game? Say in a series against Milwaukee or Miami, possibly.
No, I mean, you got Millsap coming in. He'll get some minutes. Obviously, being a veteran, he's been around. I would say Korkmaz, Isaiah Joe, that mixture. As you said, the roster's well shrink, and I would just keep mixing it up. I mean, it all depends on who's the hot hand going into the playoffs as the fifth starter.
All righty. Well, guys, that was Mike Fuji of Broad Street South Podcast, and make sure to check him out. Again, thank you for joining us today, Mike. Had to get some 76ers knowledge, especially coming off this big trade. Huge implications in the Eastern Conference and huge implications in the NBA title picture. From Juju Talk Sports, Kyle Ledbetter, and Mike Fuji. Stay safe, happy, and healthy, Slumpbusters. We will see you next time.
Thanks a lot, fellas. Appreciate it.